Hi, Dave here, and today we're going to check out the work of John Grello. He's a concept artist based in Georgia, USA, and he works at Tripwire Interactive. He does have a focus in character art, and since obviously that's his expertise, I find his character designs and drawings and paintings way more attractive and more interesting. And it's actually something that I'm trying to get better at. I always say that, but I actually have to draw and paint and actually do the art. But I've always been fascinated by how people or artists can easily draw people and faces and expressions. Reminds me a bit of Miguel Iglesias. I'm not sure if I did an art review of his work yet, but he has a way of painting faces, and it's pretty kind of realistic the way Miguel Iglesias paints his faces. And John Grello is kind of the same. It does have a lean towards realistic proportions, and his work does have that comic book kind of look to it. It's not super stylized. There's a bit of stylization involved. However, I do like the fact that he keeps it pretty close to a realistic kind of look. And again, his work does fit the comic book kind of standard for me. And he can actually do the whole kind of process from drawing to sketching to inking to full-on painting, which I do find interesting. And it's a pretty essential skill to know how to draw, and just seeing the way he does his drawings, how accurate they are. He doesn't draw them directly, obviously, where he gets it right the first time, but I've actually seen a few of his videos where he'll do a rough sketch with a slightly thicker brush, and then he'll go in for it's still a sketchy line, but a more deliberate line. And he does have a YouTube channel. I will link all of his links in the description below. I haven't found his Twitch though, his Twitch, because I think he does a lot of Twitch streams, but I haven't found, or I can't seem to find the link for his Twitch. So if you can find it, so if you can find it for me, I would totally appreciate that. And look at how the line sketch of this babe is. It's pretty rough. It's not super clean. It's not standard, I would say, but concept-wise, it's pretty interesting. And I'm still not used to seeing stuff like this as an actual, say, print, because I feel like the line work needs to be more refined. But I do think there is an appeal to sketchy or to kind of rough sketch lines as your line work. Kind of like impressionistic paintings where it's not technically a fully refined painting, but it does have that kind of impact. I think line work done in this fashion can hold, in a finished kind of illustration, enough for it to be a kind of print, or to be printed or published, right? And he can render the faces pretty well. He's pretty good with the anatomy, obviously. And given the fact that he does focus more on character art, he's just going to have that kind of expertise. Reminds me a bit of this artist named Araceli, or I think her name is Night Zhang, or I think her YouTube channel name is Night Zhang, but her Twitch name is Araceli. She's been doing characters for so long that she can actually sketch. Like, she sketched pretty directly, not Kim Jong-gi level, but she's just more accurate with her sketch lines, which is pretty interesting. And she knows how to do expressions with the faces. And I kind of want to reach that kind of standard. Maybe the style might be off from her a bit. And I do want to see if I can go for a more John Grello or Miguel Iglesias kind of look for my character designs or expressions, right? Yeah. Great anatomy. I love the legs. I love seeing the bit of, is it a tendon here? Right? It looks a bit more realistic. He did add a bit of noise here. Spider-Gwen. And imagine doing sheets like this, because he's not just showing, he does have like a few pages where he does show costume designs, more fashion types of work, or turnarounds, but I'm more fascinated by these sorts of sheets where there's actually a bit of story. I mean, yes, it's kind of designing the face a bit, but there's a bit of story involved. Like you're trying to show some kind of expression and kind of suggest what this person is about, and you're actually kind of building the character a bit in this way. You can actually still see the sketch lines here with a bit of basic coloring underneath, and his rendering is pretty good. I see a lot of like dashy types of strokes, and I actually watched this video by Steve Zapata, and he mentioned in one of his recent videos how painting is still drawing, and rendering, shading, blending, all of it is still drawing in a sense. I don't fully understand what he's trying to say there, but I think I kind of get it. When it comes to 2D or 2D art, whether you're doing a drawing or painting, you're still approaching it in a similar kind of way where you have to do it stroke by stroke. Even though you'll have to change your mindset a bit, but it's still all about strokes, and that's pretty much what limits 2D art as 2D art, or 2D paintings or 2D drawings, whatever, to 2D art. I had a point. And so I think that's why when artists are pretty good at drawing, whenever they do paint, it's almost like they don't feel like, or it doesn't feel like they have a hard time painting. Reminds me of this recent art review I did of Vlad Ganelli, this Romanian artist. The way you can see the way he sketches is pretty, it's pretty standard way of sketching. And then whenever he does his coloring phase, you can still see his stroke-like approach. It's almost like he's using pencil, except he uses a bigger, more brush-like brush, or whatever, right? Or a square kind of brush, I believe. And look at how fluid they are, right? And the proportions are pretty, again, realistic. And they all have that slight bit of expression in them that makes them interesting. Rough sketch in the background. Basic coloring, some highlights here and there. But again, the proportions are pretty well done. Now this one is more of a rendered thing. It's hard to see the actual sketch lines, but I believe he has a breakdown of this specific design. Oh, so he did like a rough sketch. Based on his videos, he does an initial kind of very rough sketch, and then he'll do like a line work or a sketch over, kind of like this one where it's a bit more deliberate, and then he'll do, based on this breakdown, an underpainting. It doesn't look like an underpainting to me. It feels like he just kind of lightened the thing. It's actually hard to see this step-by-step thing here because there's a bit of a jump, right? Where it's a line sketch. And in this phase, it's already pretty much rendered. And everything else are just kind of minor additions. So it's not a full breakdown. So fuck. This one's a nice portrait sketch of a babe. And I like seeing that brush spacing. Helps add a bit of texture to digital paintings, right? I like seeing the kind of hot red here in the shadow. Because sometimes light does penetrate the shadow in a way, or it affects the shadow sometimes. So it's not always going to be like a full gray or a full black. And I guess doing a lot of studies, like not heavily lit, but doing a lot of studies where the lighting is kind of prominent. Fuck. There's something in my fucking throat. I'm not sure if he had a reference here. Maybe he did. But it's nice seeing a bit of color in the shadows. Not all shadows basically have to be black or gray, There can be some hues inside those shadows. Fuck. Ooh, nice Chad. Very muscular dude. I think this is more of a quick study, figure drawing, painting study. Uh, yeah. I think this was part of one of his Twitch streams. I'm not sure how regularly he does his streams anymore. I did subscribe to his YouTube channel recently, but sometimes he'll post like a time lapse of his Twitch stream on YouTube. Although he does post like a lot of videos in his YouTube channel, and it's kind of not super consistent, but you know, he has a nice channel. He has enough videos for you to kind of learn something about his process. So these ones are a bit more, they're more about the design, I guess, like design sheets for a game, I believe. Lichdom, Battle Mage. And obviously this is the type of work that I don't want to do. Just because it's not my thing. I want to be more of the big picture guy. But then again, it's kind of hard to avoid doing work like this, because yeah. So he does have a few creature designs in his portfolio, not much, but since he does like a lot of character designs, people essentially, it can transfer to his creature designs, and they're pretty good. You know, obviously they will have that kind of humanoid form, right? So you can see the kind of reusing of human anatomy applied to a creature, right? And obviously all he has to do is kind of play with the proportions, maybe add an extra limb, right? Again, oh, here you can actually see that very rough initial sketch, and then he'll do like a sketch over, a more refined kind of sketch on top of that very rough sketch. But at this very rough initial sketch, it already has a bit of impact, right? So his gestures are they're already kind of interesting from the get-go. So everything else just kind of follows that initial kind of spirit or gesture, right? Oh, he did use a square brush here for the rendering. Pretty interesting designs, right? A character design sheet. The line work here is pretty clean. A portrait study or character design. No, this one is... Fuck. I actually don't know what to say, because you know, this is something I want to aim for, but I haven't done enough of character art to kind of understand or see what he sees, you know? Very, very pencil-like. And maybe it's because he's pretty good in drawing, that even when he does paint, his drawing ability kind of transfers. Like, you can still see that pencil-like kind of approach, where he does, even when he paints with a different brush, it feels like he's just kind of shading it, except with a more brushy brush, you know? And look at how even at this stage, it looks pretty interesting, right? Even the faces have that expression in them. And again, it's a bit realistic, not super stylized. The foreshortening is pretty accurate, or at least believable, right? And he has a lot of posts like this in his ArtStation portfolio, where he does like a lot of heads. I'm not sure if these are from imagination or from reference, but he does stylize it a bit with these ones, but it's still in the real. It still falls more on the realistic side of things. And I don't see him use the mixer brush a lot. I think he just likes to be more direct with his painting, almost like gouache. It feels more like a gouache kind of painting, where you can see the shapes more clearly, like the value variations. They're kind of separate from one another, and they're not heavily blended, right? And even at this stage, at this kind of sketch phase, it already looks kind of good. Not kind of good, it looks good. So maybe this is just something that comes with experience. Oh, this is the black and white version. I do think maybe it's more about experience. So he did a black and white sketch. Maybe this is not, or maybe I think this could be the first sketch, and then shit. Sorry about that. And then he did like a flat color or base colors under the sketch, and then he added some shadows perhaps, I'm guessing. That one extra value to kind of add a bit of form. And then he rendered it. Or he painted over that line sketch. Right? And then as the final kind of face, he added more, or maybe he did kind of pump up the contrast a bit with maybe some kind of adjustment layer, I'm guessing. And maybe some extra paint overs to make it even darker. He did kind of darken up the eyes a bit. Yeah. Pretty interesting. And again, you can actually see the shapes. The shapes of it are pretty clear. And I love the way he does lighting of the faces or figures in general, where you can see a lot of, it doesn't look flat at all, right? And at this point, it's more of an illustration, right? It's because for concept art, you don't actually have to fully finish the painting. It could work in this level right here, but he can bring it to a more refined kind of level. I'm not sure if he does like a lot of marketing art, but I'm pretty sure he could. Maybe he can do like covers, book covers, album covers, whatever. Just because his painting style is pretty like it's meant to be printed, right? Very brush. Oh shit, I think it's the same guy, I'm guessing. Because the proportions are pretty similar. Maybe he's just trying to change the hairstyle a bit, but so maybe this could be like a character exploration sheet. And then some colors. And you can still see the line sketch. And then maybe he did render it? No, in this stage, it's kind of enough for a concept. It's pretty presentable, but it's not overly rendered like these chicks right here in the bottom, right? So you can still leave that kind of initial line sketch in the beginning. And you can always tone it down with a few adjustment layers, or you could decrease the opacity or change the hue a bit. Because I think he made it black in the beginning and then he just turned it into like a reddish brown. Yeah. These ones are actually very concept arty. It still feels very sketchy, right? You can still see the line work here. It's very, very rough, but it has a pose. It has a bit of design in it. It's not super refined, but it looks pretty good. And again, even the faces here of this guy, this chick, and this chick, there's a bit of expression. So there is already that part of storytelling, that kind of narrative art that's kind of happening, right? And again, it doesn't have to be finished. Reminds me, the way he did this kind of armor here, this kind of mech armor, reminds me a bit of Zach Foreman. I'm not sure if I did an art review of his work. But the way he does the line sketch, especially in this kind of suit, this exoskeleton suit, reminds me a lot of Zach Foreman. And the way he does the blacks again, very, very comic book-ish. Just look at any kind of Catwoman inked art piece or page in comics, and you can see, because she does use kind of a latex kind of suit, so she's mostly wearing kind of black, and you can see this kind of way of rendering, where you have a bit of highlights spared, but most of it is black. It's kind of the same process, I guess, you would use for hair as well. Here you can still see the line work, but for this chick, it's she's a bit rendered, more refined. I love the way he did the highlights of this jacket here, of the sleeve, especially the way it's kind of going around the folds, makes it way more realistic. And yeah, again, the proportions are pretty stylized, but it's more realistic, right? Reminds me of that kind of telepathic game. I'm not a gamer or anything, but I do know there's this kind of game where there's this chick, I believe she's a redhead or something, and she can like move shit with her hands. I believe, shit, what's the guy's name? The Iranian dude. Fuck. Shit. So this one's like way more illustrated just because of the way he did the lighting here. God, fuck. Although it is a pretty big contrast from the sketches behind this chick. You can still see the rough line sketch, and it's more of a flat kind of rendering. Or there's hardly any rendering. It's just like a base color, set of colors, right? Oh, I actually did include the video of this specific sheet in the description. Why can't I talk? In this description, in the description below. And you can see him do a bit of a rough sketch in the beginning for these sketches right here, and then he'll do a more refined sketch, which is this thing, right? And I do like the way he rendered this guy. And again, you can actually see it in the video. It's actually done in real time. I believe it's from his Twitch, and then he posted it fully on YouTube. And here you can still see a bit of that line work, right? But obviously he focused more of his rendering in this, like in the head and in the armor, chest area. But it looks pretty finished. It could be, it looks like it could be something done for some kind of marketing kind of art, or wallpaper, or print. It looks pretty finished and presentable. Some more sketches. Ooh, black eye. Ooh. Very, very rough. It looks like this was the initial sketch, maybe. Hard to say. Some more black and white sketches. Right? Again, look at the way he does the blacks here. Very, very comic book-ish. A bit of a graffiti style text here. Reminds me of my input woe. Because he likes the graffiti kind of look as well. Ooh, I love the way he did the wings here, stroke by stroke. You know, he didn't render anything, but he just kind of let the stroke go with the feathers, right? Very rough looking sketch, but it looks realistic. The facial proportions are still there. The way he did the hair is the way he did the wings as well. So he does kind of split it. He can do like a more smaller kind of line work where he does make the brush to a more pencil size, and then he can use a more bigger brush that's actually more of a brush, or it looks like a traditional kind of brush. Fuck. A snapshot of one of his Twitch streams from 2015, and here you can actually see this batch of very, very rough sketches, and then he'll do a slightly more refined kind of line work. It's not fully refined, but it's you can tell the contours are present, right? So more character designs. And I actually do like this kind of black and white look. It has more impact, and it helps if the whole page, or if the page is not fully white, because it's kind of all, you know, it can be kind of annoying, you know, when you're seeing things, especially when you're a night dweller, you know. Whenever I see artwork that has mostly a white background, it just kind of blinds me. And here it's kind of balanced. You can see like a solid black in the background, and it does really help, you know, make these faces pop out more, right? So I'm guessing again he did like a rough sketch in the beginning, and then he did a more refined kind of line work after that, right? Again, the proportions are very, very realistic, and the way he does his expressions, well done, right? I love this smirk here, or lingerie, ooh la la. Now this one could be a cover for something, his stream maybe. Now he did use kind of a grayscale or a bit of value shading with his initial kind of black and white sketch. Looks good. Now this one feels more like a comic book kind of character, but the face is pretty realistic. Retard. Although the way he did the inks, the blacks here, it's pretty rough, but it's still cool. And he kind of balanced that, or coupled that with a more pencil-like kind of shading. Does it work? Kind of, but I don't know. More faces. And just based on the work we've kind of seen in the past few minutes, this guy is just ahead in terms of facing shit of faces. Fuck, Dave, fuck of faces, right? So he has an expertise, he has an edge, he has that kind of mastery when it comes to drawing faces, especially women, right? Like he knows how to soften down the face to make it look like a woman. Because whenever I draw women, sometimes I have to be a bit more careful because sometimes I add more or way more line work or way more lines than there needs to be, and it does make her look or make my characters look a bit more old, and I have to kind of be more aware when it comes to that kind of thing. I love the way he rendered this hand though. It reminds me a bit of Jama Jurabaev, just because of the way he handled the blacks here, right? I love the way he shaded the abs though, fuck. It's mostly a hatching kind of technique. And again, he did kind of mix the like the ink-like approach where you use like a thicker brush and a pencil approach, like a graphite pencil approach where it's more of a hatching kind of approach or shading, right? I love the way he did the highlights here in the breasts or in the bra. Damn. And again, the face is awesome. Now this one's not a, it's more of a biomechanical suit. No, not biomechanical, like a mechanical mech suit in space. Oh, the design here of this gun reminds me a bit of Prog Wang. I think I did an art review of his work. I think. And just seeing these sorts of pods, it does have that kind of biological look to it. Yeah. Now this one's pretty rendered. You can see the highlights. The forms are pretty clear. The design is pretty much set. And I love the way he did this kind of reflective light here coming from these wings. Right? And you can see a bit of that sun being reflected on... Reflected? Is reflected the word? It's being... The light of the sun is being casted on this side of the guy, right? Awesome design. But it doesn't have like a lot of these sorts of mechanical types of things. Now this one's more developed. It's not finished, but you can tell by the way he painted this chick and this chick. It's a bit more rendered. And again, the way he did the knees, it looks pretty realistic to me. And I mean, look at how he can go from a very rough sketch to a more refined painting. And look at those folds. I mean, Jesus. Right? It does look realistic. Like he knows where the pinch happens. And the way he did this, I believe it's some kind of tank top under some kind of coat. How it's kind of falling down, it's a bit loose. And they're obviously drunk, right? It looks awesome. And even the way they're posed, it looks like they're having fun and they're kind of chilling out. And I want to be able to tell stories with my characters, and I feel like John Grello is the guy to go to. Now for Miguel Iglesias, he's more of a design person where he doesn't really pose the characters too much. He doesn't do like a lot of drawing. He just goes directly for the painting and he kind of figures out the design as he goes. But for John Grello, I do like this kind of approach where he can draw characters in certain poses. He can draw facial expressions. I mean, even with these three chicks, they obviously have different kind of facial expressions to them, right? And again, the pose is pretty cool too. Ooh. Now he has three kind of grayscale paintings, but you can still see the line sketch in them. And he doesn't have a lot of brush variety in his work because obviously he's not, he can do full-on paintings, but it's not too textured. He kind of keeps it fairly clean. And here you can actually see the very rough sketch he did in the beginning. He used a bigger brush, and then he probably just toned down the opacity, and then he did a new layer, and then started drawing over that rough kind of lay-in, right? And this could be, I'm guessing, a study sheet of different faces, no shit, and with their unique expressions. And look at how the expressions are pretty subtle. They're not, again, he's not a very stylized kind of guy, but he was able to capture that slight bit of facial expression that, that gives a bit of story, I guess, to the character. I mean, look at how this guy has a kind of a smug, disgusted kind of look. Now, this chick is kind of pretty neutral. Now, this one, she's obviously in distress. You can see a bit of makeup kind of falling apart. She's crying. But she has a bit of that serious look to her, right? Oh, fuck. Now, the stuff with these two, the way it's kind of rendered, it's a bit too clean. But, it's great for a game, maybe. Like some kind of a screensaver. Oh, I think he also has a Twitch stream of this guy. The time-lapse, I believe, is on YouTube as well. Or is this a dude? I think so. Is it? I don't think this is Spider-Gwen, so I think this is a dude. Or maybe not. Oh no. The boobs are kind of, or maybe he's a bit too thick, that's why. So it's kind of, yeah, I think it's a dude. Yeah. Awesome rendering. You can still see a bit of that pencil-like strokes here in the way he kind of shaded in the shadows. But you can see him do the same thing, very rough sketch, the base colors, and then he'll do like a shadow, and then he'll do like a paint over that's more of a rendering where he does more blending. And it's a pretty standard kind of approach. Nice rendering, grayscale still. And again, the expressions are there. Kind of looks like Rey from Star Wars, right? Even in this kind of view, obviously the face is going to be smaller. He can still kind of draw a face. Whenever I do like smaller figures in my painting, I kind of struggle with how to make them more of a human being. Or make them look more like a human being. I mean, I can do like a silhouette of a human being, but being able to draw in a small fashion is something that I need to work on, right? Like, how do I simplify the whole figure in just like a few lines, right? Now, these are more heavy pencil studies. You can see a bit of slight shading in them after the actual drawing. And they're way more smoother here, right? I love the way he did the hair here. It's not just the shape, he actually did he shaded the hair, stroke by stroke, and suggested the flow of the hair. So it's not just a graphic shape. He's not doing it like Adam Hughes. Adam Hughes has a different approach when it comes to drawing hair, where it's more shape heavy. Here you can see a bit of that gestural kind of line sketch, and he did kind of shade the hair a bit to suggest the volume or how it's actually hair, right? And here you can see two examples of his rough sketch, or how he actually starts his sketch. It's pretty rough. He does use a slightly bigger brush. He did add a bit of that lens correction. You can see that shift of red and green. Ew. A grayscale painting. Awesome. Again, the black and white approach. He did kind of slightly shade the face a bit, and it feels like he used the blending stump. If this was done traditionally, it would feel like he used the blending stump for the grays in this kind of face, because it's pretty subtle, it's not too strong. But again, the way he did the blacks, it almost looks like a comic book kind of approach of inking, because that's how inkers usually ink. They usually go for they use like this big brush to kind of shade the blacks quickly. And sometimes I do see hatch work in a lot of comics, but more often than not, I see the more brush approach, where they use a brush instead of like a fine liner kind of ink. And obviously, it does help to fill in big areas of black much easier. And he kind of rendered this coat the same way he rendered the hair of this chick. So these ones are more grayscale. You can still see a bit of that rough sketch, but it's more of a painting now, right? Some more black and white sketches with a bit of a flat gray in them. More black and white sketches. Again, I did pick out his faces or the more character-centered posts just because it's what stands out to me in his portfolio, and it just shows his expertise. And it's kind of, it goes back to that kind of classic advice when it comes to portfolio work. Post the type of work you want to do. And obviously he's more interested in character design, so he's obviously going to be doing and posting more of his character artwork. But this one's not a character sheet, but I do like the way he did this. The line work is pretty clean. With a bit of, there's hardly any shading. It's more about like a flat approach to kind of just distinguish which part is which. Nice guy here, silhouette, for a sense of scale. But I do like the design of it. Some more creature designs. It's kind of a mix of a pencil and a blending stump. Again, it does have that realistic kind of look. Now, this chick actually looks a bit like, if you just focus on the eyes, a bit like Scarlett Johansson, but obviously the cheekbones and the chin, it's pretty sharp. Yeah. Some kind of aquatic creature, perhaps? Again, you can see that initial rough sketch, and then he'll do like a more refined sketch over that. So I guess that's how he does his studies. Rough lay-in, and then he'll do like a line work. And over time, by doing this sort of approach, maybe he just kind of incorporated this idea of what makes something look realistic when it comes to human anatomy or human expressions. Right? They actually look realistic. Not like J. Scott Campbell, where the proportions are kind of, I mean, I do like his work, but it's a bit too stylized for me. For John Grello here, it's a bit more realistic. Reminds me a bit of Ian McKeag. His figures or his people are also a bit more realistic, not super stylized, or they at least fall on the realistic side of things in terms of proportions. I love these sketches. They seem quick. There's a bit of gray scale painting, but he did utilize some blacks to add in the darks. No shit. Again, whenever you're doing the inks, you have to be a bit careful again when it comes to adding them, because if you do too much, it can make the guy look a bit old. Say for this guy, right? The more you add lines, it can look like wrinkles. So you have to be a bit more choosy. And if you compare these two ladies with the rest of these fellows here, they have less lines in the face, right? So something to consider. Grayscale painting. Awesome. I'm not sure how often he actually does his practice sessions. Fuck. If you do find this guy's Twitch channel, I would love if you could actually post it in the comment section below. I actually don't use Twitch a lot, but sometimes if the artist does have a Twitch channel, I will check it out, and sometimes I can listen, but it's pretty rare. But yeah, because maybe this guy does more Twitch than YouTube. I love the way he rendered the arms here. It's a bit soft, but the way he did like the light part here, it's more of a shape. It's just a flat kind of white. Reminds me of the way Adam Hughes renders his babes or his characters. He'll kind of draw it in a very shape-like fashion, and then he'll render it in a very kind of realistic fashion. And I guess it's because John kind of left the outline solid. It does remind me of Adam Hughes because it does give that what's the word? Art Nouveau kind of effect where you can where you can usually see this kind of outline in the figures, this very solid kind of line. So yeah, I love the foreshortening here of this hand. Oh, the fingers look amazing. They actually look like they have bones, right? Very, very highly rendered. Well, it's not finished, but it's pretty high level the way he rendered this whole page, I guess. And maybe he does comics. I'm not sure if this is more of a random kind of thing, but given his expertise in drawing people, he could easily do them, and in all sorts of styles, whether it be just the pencils to the inks, to inks with some colors, or maybe full-on paintings, right? Same thing goes for this page. And maybe I'm pretty sure he can do storyboards as well, although I haven't seen a lot of storyboards in his portfolio. But he could do them, right? Oh, it reminds me a bit of Jama Jurabaev, because Jama sometimes likes to use the halftone to shade in certain parts whenever he does his black and white sketches. And even Shinku Kim. Shinku Kim has recently been using his iPad, I think, and he does the same thing, where he does add that kind of halftone effect to shade in certain parts instead of just using like a solid black. Pretty cool. It has that kind of manga kind of look to it. More of a design character sheet. Ship design. Oh, he does have a gumroad as well. He only sells like one. I believe he's selling his sketchbook. It's the 2019 edition of his Ionic sketchbook of his. And I believe he also has a few like time-lapse videos and brushes as well in that kind of pack. So do check it out. I will link his Gumroad in the description below as well. So if you're trying to work on your character art, or you want to get better at your kind of people drawing, painting skills, I would recommend you check out the work of John Grello. And yeah. And he does have a more realistic kind of look. He's not heavily stylized. And I think for most of us, that's actually kind of good, because even if you focus on a realistic kind of look, you can always tone things down as you go. It's always a kind of a rule of thumb to go for the realistic kind of look, and then as you progress, you can kind of change the amount of realism that's involved. Just because by going for the realistic route, you get a good grasp of the fundamentals, and once you have that good grasp of the fundamentals in terms of facial structure and proportions and expressions, you can just kind of play around with those things as you get better with your skills. So I do hope you enjoyed this video, this art review of John Grello. Follow him. He does have an Instagram. I think he does post more of his sketches on his Instagram than his ArtStation. Check out his sketchbook in his Gumroad, his digital sketchbook in his Gumroad store. If you can find his Twitch, please comment it in the comment section below. And of course, follow him on ArtStation if you have an ArtStation. So thank you for watching. Keep drawing, keep painting, and stay free.